Human trafficking.
Human trafficking.
Human trafficking.
Human trafficking.
Human trafficking.
Human trafficking.
Hoy en día, más de 50 millones de personas en todo el mundo viven en condiciones de esclavitud moderna. Sí, en pleno siglo XXI. Y no están lejos, están aquí en Europa, en países como Rumanía, Moldavia y Ucrania.
The current reality is not good. Romania has been among the first places in the number of victims of human trafficking identified.
Son víctimas invisibles del tráfico humano, del trabajo forzado y de la explotación sexual.
Traffickers make them have tattoos is a sign like I have control over you.
Y lo más alarmante es que casi nadie habla de esto.
They went, and once they got there, the story completely changed. He was using threats against her family. He had the control over everything until she finally got the courage to escape that situation.
Yo soy Fernando González y los invito a mi segunda parada en este recorrido por algunos países de Europa del Este para mostrar las realidades de la vida aquí, los problemas, retos y sueños que tienen las personas que viven en esta parte de Europa. Acompáñenme.
The number of victims per year is around, but this is like just the tip of the iceberg.
Este es el segundo video que estoy haciendo de este recorrido por Europa del Este. Y en este video no vamos a hablar de arquitectura, no vamos a hablar de historia. Aquí vamos a hablar de una realidad que es muy cruda, de una problemática que afecta a millones de personas todos los años y que sucede aquí, en Europa. Porque aunque muchos no lo crean, esto también es Europa. Una Europa en donde hay personas esclavizadas, explotadas, traficadas y silenciadas. ¿Y por qué decidí hacer este video en Europa del Este, específicamente en Rumanía? Pues porque en Europa del Este esto es una realidad muy fuerte, ya que tanto Rumanía, Moldavia y Ucrania son puntos claves dentro de las rutas de tráfico humano. Y si bien estos países están aquí en Europa, las estructuras de protección para posibles víctimas son todavía muy frágiles, especialmente en este lado del continente. Aquí en Bucarest, Rumanía, he tenido la oportunidad de entrevistar a Anca Lujas, Research and Policy Officer de la ONG Eliberare, una ONG que lleva más de 10 años ayudando a prevenir el tráfico humano y ayudando a las víctimas de esta terrible realidad. Así que escuchemos a Anca para que nos cuente un poco más sobre la realidad que afronta Rumanía con el tráfico humano.
What's the current reality of human trafficking in Romania?
The current reality is not good, unfortunately, and it's not been good for the last few decades. Why I'm saying that is because statistics, both national statistics and EU statistic, Eurostat, shows that Romania has been, if not on the first place every single year, at least among the first places every single year for the last 20 years in the number of victims of human trafficking identified. So out of this number, around 50% of the victims are exploited abroad, so in other countries of the European Union, and 50% are exploited in Romania. Around 70 or 80% are women, and they're in sexual exploitation. The rest is in labor exploitation or in forced begging. And I think the saddest reality is that every single year, the national reports show us that it's around also 50%, or maybe sometimes in certain years a little bit above 50% of the victims identified are kids, are underaged people. And in recent years, online exploitation through child pornography has been intensified a lot, especially after the pandemics. So there's a situation, unfortunately, in Romania. The number of victims per year is around 500 identified, yeah. But this is like just the tip of the iceberg.
Y es que si buscan cifras en el internet, cifras oficiales, el tráfico humano es un negocio mundial de alto calibre. El tráfico humano genera más de 150 millones de dólares cada año. O sea, es un negocio monumental. Y hay más de 50 millones de víctimas cada año. Y es que el tráfico humano no solamente se trata de explotación sexual, y eso es algo que todo el mundo tiene que saber. El tráfico humano va más allá. El tráfico humano también se trata de matrimonios forzados, de explotación infantil, de servidumbre doméstica, de tráfico de órganos. Hay un abanico de situaciones que forman parte de esto que llamamos tráfico humano o víctimas de tráfico humano, que son utilizadas para cada una de estas cosas.
And what would you say at this point are the main tactics or the key tactics that traffickers usually use here? And who are the most vulnerable groups?
Okay, so first, when we speak about Romania, also the national reports show us that sexual exploitation is first, around, as I said, 70 to 80%. When it comes to sexual exploitation, we talk the most about women, but men are not excluded either, unfortunately. So when it comes to the recruitment method for sexual exploitation with women is the most used method is the lover boy method. That is through relationship, through a trusted romantic relationship. For example, it gets even as far as fiancés, husbands taking their wives outside just to make money, and then they take them into exploitation. So it works a lot because women actually want to make a family. They want to make a wedding, have a husband, and have kids. And these men that usually are the traffickers, they know it works. I don't know why. I think they learned from each other. I don't know how it works, but we have seen this story, this recruitment method, very successful year after year, despite all the prevention efforts. And you asked about the vulnerable groups. So definitely what we see is like people from a certain type of social categories that go through poverty or dysfunctional families, or it's not only in rural areas, it's also in urban areas. But something that the majority of victims, and especially women, have in common is that they lack a father figure, for example, or they come from a dysfunctional family where the father was either an alcoholic or was violent or was absent. Basically, that's something that we get like feedback from, especially organizations who work directly with victims. They have shelters and they work every day. Another vulnerable group in Romania are the children from the state protection. For example, there was a national report saying that, I think it was in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. So the statistic was showing that 1 in 5 identified victims was coming from the state protection system. That's another big vulnerable group. And also there are people, going to work abroad in search for a better life, in search for, for just making a better living. Either be like, and they get caught up in sexual exploitation or labor exploitation because they want to make a living, get a better job, but actually they end up in something they didn't expect.
Hago este paréntesis para pedirles que si por favor les está gustando el video, se suscriban a mi canal haciendo clic en el botón de suscribirse o subscribe que se encuentra debajo de la pantalla. Es gratis y con esto me ayudan mucho a seguir creando contenido. Y lo más alarmante de todo esto es que estas víctimas no es que están en una jaula atrapadas, no. Son personas que están completamente amenazadas por miedo, por deudas o incluso por personas que dicen amarlas o quererlas. O sea, miembros de su propia familia muchas veces son quienes trafican a estas personas.
I want to ask you about a story that has had a lot of impact on you. A real case of someone without naming any names, of someone that was victim of human trafficking.
Yes, there are a lot of stories. It's not only one. But I can tell you one that you will be able to hear in many cases because it's a story that is very common, especially in victims of sexual exploitation. it was a case of a woman who was actually was a young woman who was, fell in love with somebody. It's the same story. Her fiance wanted to go abroad, make money, make a wedding, and make a family as well. That was the dream that he was selling. So of course, she after like I think 2 years, so he took his time. They went, and once they got there, the story completely changed because she couldn't go back. He was using threats against her family. He had the control over everything. Maybe she didn't know the language. I'm sure she didn't know the language of the country, so it was hard for her to, escape or find a solution. So I think it was several years, around 7 years, until she finally got the courage to come up to escape that situation, despite all the threats. Like, because this is what traffickers do. They have like a specific psychological manipulation methods, and it works because once you get threatened, the trafficker knew her family. He knew where her family was living, so it was very easy to keep her under control. Another story, and it's a common story, is when the victim gets pregnant by the trafficker. It's also a very good method to keep victims under control. So it's even harder to escape because the trafficker has your child, and he gets you entangled, and he gets control over you by having your child. So when you get victims who also have children with the traffickers, it's almost like a situation impossible to get out of the situation because she doesn't want to leave her child. That's why she will not get out of the exploitation. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wow, it's unbelievable.
But this story was a success story because she has had this courage to, no matter what it takes, I'm going to ask for help. And she reached out to somebody, like a public figure, which fortunately the person knew the signs of trafficking and knew what to do. So this was how she got out. But the sad point is that a lot of victims, they self-identify. What does it mean? they take a huge risk usually, and the risk is if I get caught, they either kill me or I get beaten up or I get punished somehow. So with the risk of my life, I need to do something, and if that means I will die, that's it. So a lot of victims are taking the risks of their lives to get out of the situation, unfortunately, when it's already too much, for them.
Personalmente para mí este video es muy importante. ¿Y por qué? Porque si bien me gusta contar historias, también me gusta mostrar lo que está detrás de las fachadas, lo que está detrás de la vida cotidiana y las realidades que vive la gente, independientemente del lugar en el que estén. Por eso creo que es importante dar visibilidad a este tema, porque así creamos que esto es algo distante, que le pasa a otros y no a nosotros. Todos podemos hacer algo para ayudar a estas personas.
So let's now talk about victim support and recovery. So I would like to ask
Okay.
you what kind of psychological or emotional impact does trafficking leave on survivors?
So look, there was something that one of the survivors that we work with told me, and it really impacted me, is that she said, look, therapy helps you to control the situation inside, to control the emotions and all the trauma, but it will never wipe it away. It will never take it away. It can just help control it. So I was very, very shocked by this, but I think it's partially true. I really believe in healing. That's why I'm in this field of anti-trafficking. But I do believe in the same time that the impact of trafficking is huge, and psychologically speaking, it's recognized as a complex multiple trauma. It's even worse, or just the same as worse as PTSD, I think. So it takes a lifetime to heal, and they need psychological therapy. It's really important, and it's a process. It doesn't get healed immediately, but it takes a lot of time, and a lot of people are involved in helping her. But what I believe is that it can be healed. Like, one psychologist said that it was through people that the person was exploited and hurt, and it's also through people that she gets healed, through meaningful relationships.
So how would you say you guys can support, or people should support survivors in the long term, not just from escaping, but in the rebuilding their lives again?
It's what they need is multiple complex assistance on all sides. But if I were to put like a hierarchy of needs, definitely the first is the material, but joined with the psychological, because as soon as a victim gets out of the exploitation situation, she needs somebody by her side all the time, and that's the psychological therapeutic help. But it's hand in hand with the material help. That means she needs to have a place, like a shelter, where she's not only like she has where to sleep, but she has a protected place. That's very important. She needs to know that she's protected. That's even more important when she has a child. There is, like, for example, an organization that has a program that has seen a lot of results. They're doing a 1 year and 8 months program with intensive care, therapy, psychological care, and legal care, everything. That it's like a package of assistance. And we believe that the help that these women need is like on all fronts, like everything. You need a multidisciplinary team to help only one victim not only get out of the situation of the exploitation, but also see her lives restored.
Exactly.
Yeah, unfortunately, so that's why we're saying all the time, it's better to put all the efforts and all the resources that we can get in prevention to to stop people from getting into exploitation, because once they do get into exploitation, it's so hard. It takes so much time and efforts and resources to help them have a restored life.
Creo que liberar es una labor única y muy importante, con muy pocos recursos. Y creo que aquí también es un llamado a las instituciones públicas, a las instituciones privadas, a cada uno de nosotros que podemos aportar un granito de arena, ya sea dando visibilidad a esta problemática, ya sea hablando de esto, educando, compartiendo este video, yendo a charlas que hablen sobre esto, y así poco a poco ir creando más ruido sobre esta problemática que puede afectar a cualquier persona a nuestro alrededor.
What kind of support do you need from institutions, the government, or the private sector?
So from the government, we have been working a lot on advocacy efforts. We have seen results. We have seen a willingness from the part of authorities to work and to enhance the services for victims. So we do see a willingness, and we do see, the political will to do something. And there are some results that we have seen, but still the people in trafficking or victims of trafficking, they need so much help that I believe that we have only started, So what we are, working a lot on right now is to have multiple streams of income, especially organizations that are working with victims, and also to see funds from the state, to see that the state has a stable, clear, defined stream of income or funds that are allocated to victims. Because as I said, it's very hard for a victim of human trafficking to make a new life if she doesn't or he doesn't get help support for it. Yes, and I'm going to tell you just a situation so you can understand this better, at least in Romania. So for example, you get a victim of sexual exploitation who was recruited from since she was 18, let's say, or even younger, like as a child. And she was exploited. She didn't get the chance to finish her school, or she just finished high school, or not even that. She's exploited for a few years. She didn't have the time to develop any skills. And plus, she has a child or two from exploitation. Okay, she gets saved with her kids, but now you expect her to make a living for herself, for her two kids, because we have situations like this. It's not an exception. This is the rule. The majority of women in sexual exploitation, they come out with one child or two, or maybe more. So you expect her to make a living with a underskilled job, unqualified job that is, barely making up for your own survival. You expect her to go to a full-time job, also take kids to the kindergarten, take them out. Like, if she doesn't have parents to help or anybody else, like, it's situation impossible. It's too hard. So that's why we're looking for organizations, people, funders, donors who are willing to fund the assistance element, because many organizations want to fund the prevention element, but there are so few organizations who really want to fund the assistance element. And that means long-term assistance. That means not only, covering for the needs of the victim right now, but building capacity, skills, maybe covering for her if she wants to continue school, so she gets a better chance, to make a living for herself and the kids. So I think that's one thing that we need. But also, I think when it comes to training, in order to proactively identify victims, I think this is something that needs to be ongoing, continuous, also hand in hand going with prevention. Especially, we need to get to the young people, and not through traditional methods, but we need to get to the young people through young people's ideas, like social media campaigns, like their way. So I think this is what we would like to focus on in the future.
How can ordinary people like me, for example, or people watching this video can be part of the solution?
Well, I think it's always very good to get informed, at least to know how you can identify what trafficking is, first of all. What is trafficking? Because for many people, this is just like something in the organized crime category. Like, this is for the organized crime brigade, or those guys, masked police guys. But this is this is in plain sight. Many times it could be your neighbor, it could be a child, across the street, it could be anybody. So I think it's very important as a citizen, as an individual, to know what the signs of trafficking are. How can you spot sexual exploitation, for example? How do you know that a woman is exploited sexually, by somebody she trusts in, maybe by her fiancé, maybe by her boyfriend, but you don't know this. You think it's domestic violence, maybe. You think they have some couple issues. But how do you actually understand? How do you see beyond those bruises? How do you see beyond the sadness in her eyes? How do you see beyond the fear in her eyes, and spot, okay, I think there must be more. I need to understand. I need to know why. That's one thing. Also, you need to know how to spot signs of labor trafficking, for example, because many people, don't even know the rights they have. So they think this is normal. It's a bad situation, but that's life. They don't understand that the rights they have, and they get exploited even through labor, for example. So once you know what the normal is, you can spot the abnormal. Once you know what a healthy situation in life is, you can spot the unhealthy, the toxic ones. So you can help other people, at least be aware. And for example, once you understand these signs, there are ways you can report it. It's also important to know how you can report it, because one very important thing that can help you is to understand that it is not expected of you to do the investigation. It is not expected of you to be the savior of somebody. So that immediately takes a lot of burden out of your shoulders, So once you understand that it is enough for you to only have a suspicion that somebody might be exploited or might be a victim, it's already enough to call the police, and they're obliged by law, by national laws, international laws, to start an investigation on behalf of what you already reported. Sometimes, for example, what could help, because in Romania, this is something that we have seen, it helps. Many people are very reluctant to call the police because, they say, I don't want to get involved, I don't want to be called as a witness or something else. So because they don't want to get involved, they prefer to stay out of it. But now in Romania, there was a law just recently passed that any person who has a suspicion of human trafficking and does not report, they are passable. I mean, they could go to prison for like 6 months up to 1 year. So it's illegal right now. But something that can help to take off the burden from the shoulders of people, who get scared, is that there are organizations like us, for example, where you can call and you say, okay, I have the suspicion, but I don't want to get involved too much. I'm just giving you the information, and you can take this from me and you can call the right people, call the organized crime, and they can start it, So I don't want to be involved. I don't have the time. I don't have the willingness, to go to further. But anti-trafficking organizations like us can play the role of an intermediary, between the individual who spotted the indicators and the police, state authorities.
A key role, critical
Yeah.
role, of course.
This is actually exactly the story of the doctor who reported the case. Because 2 weeks after our training, she understood the situation. She saw this patient coming to her. It was in the emergency room. She was fearful. She was scared. She was having bruises on her body. Once the doctor consulted her, she also spotted like a tattoo. Usually victims have a tattoo, specific tattoos, that traffickers, put them, like they make them have tattoos that show or is a sign like I have control over you. So she was able to remember those few indicators, and she knew how to approach the woman, in a trauma-informed way. And the woman actually opened up and revealed the situation that, look, this person accompanying me is, she didn't say he's my trafficker, but he forces me to do things I don't want. So immediately she understood. So she was able to call the police. She also called us. So the thing that she had to do is just understand, spot the indicators, and then know whom to call. That's it. So this is how a victim was saved, basically.
Anka, looking ahead, what is your biggest hope or goal for the next 5 years in the fight against human trafficking?
Well, we usually have this saying, once we are no longer needed, we have reached our scope, we have reached our goal, because our dream is that maybe at some point in our lives, we will get to do something else because we are no longer needed, Maybe, let's say, there's no more human trafficking, or people know how to defend themselves against exploitation, or the state already is so able and capacitated to take all this burden from organizations that is no longer needed for us, But definitely, if I would put if I would put it in more detail, it would be to see at least people in Romania understand danger, how to spot the risk, and how to defend themselves, especially like before anything happens. And another thing is that everybody, understands this and is able to step in once you hear like a neighbor, he's going somewhere, abroad just to work something, and you are able to care enough to ask enough questions and to raise awareness. Do you know where you're going? Do you really, know what you're going to do. You know, these kind of simple things that, you know, all come down to really seeing the person next to you and caring enough, you know, to ask the right questions or to, you know, be the safe person maybe in your close relationships.
Una persona puede ser traficada por cualquier otra persona que esté en su círculo cercano. Es una realidad y las estadísticas lo dicen. Con lo cual creo que este es un video que no tiene un objetivo de lograr vistas. Este video tiene el objetivo de ser compartido para que la gente se eduque, se informe, conozcamos más esta problemática, ya que en este momento estoy en Rumanía y estoy hablando de la situación aquí. Pero esto puede estar pasando en Venezuela, en España, en Italia, en Estados Unidos, en México, en Colombia, en todos los países del mundo. Y es una realidad que hoy en día no debería de existir, porque una persona no es un objeto al que se le puede sacar provecho, simplemente así. Espero que este video haya servido para educarnos, para dar visibilidad a una realidad que existe y para compartirlo con personas, para que también estén informados y preparados por si algún día llegan a enfrentar una situación como esta o llegan a ver a alguien que posiblemente pueda caer en redes de tráfico humano o ya lo esté. Así que con esto me despido, no sin antes pedirles que se suscriban a mi canal. Soy Fernando González. Hagan clic aquí en el botón de abajo donde dice suscribirse o subscribe. Hagan clic a la campanita para activar las notificaciones y que vean los siguientes videos que voy a estar compartiéndoles sobre este recorrido en Europa del Este. Y me encantaría que dejaran sus comentarios aquí abajo sobre este video para saber qué piensan ustedes de esta situación y qué creen que se puede hacer para dar mayor visibilidad y evitar que esto suceda. Con esto me despido desde aquí, desde Bucarest, la capital de Rumanía. Les mando un abrazo y hasta la próxima parada.